And one. Hmm? Check your setting of the phone.
Like this.
Okay.
So first you transfer control.
Hmm?
Yes. You're going to comment.
Uh-huh.
The board is not sure.
What is
I don't want to. I will. If you're going to this, give comment.
okay? Hello, guys. My name is Engineer Haliday. You are welcome to the live video we have been talking about, and we are going to be talking about introduction to or introductory electronics. This is a class that all of us will enjoy, and I pray that as we teach, we get better understanding. Now, when we talk about electronics, electronics is talking about the science of free electrons from atoms of matters. So when we are talking about science of free electrons from atoms of matter, controlling their flow, that means through vacuum, and this controlling what flow of this what through vacuum or even through a fluid tube. Now let me make it simple. Don't forget, a conductor is that which what allow free mobile electron to flow through them. Meaning that for electron to have free mobile electron to flow through them means that makes them a conductor. Now we also have semiconductor. Actually, these are materials that lies between conductor and insulator. So these are the material we are going to be looking in detail and using using electronics to explain them. One thing again we have to look at first, we have to look at the band, energy band in this class. In solid, we are going to look at how we can apply it to what? Types of solid. Then we are still going to look at, after looking at types of solid, as a conductor, semiconductor, and insulator. These are three basic solid materials that we are going to be discussing. Now, in this case now, when we talk about energy band in solid, now this is multiples of individual energy levels that are close to each other. When we talk about energy level in quantum physics, we are talking about this energy level like this, but they must be close to each other. So we are talking about this energy level that are close to each other. We call them what? Energy band. Number two is that this energy of each of these electrons will fall within one of the levels. That means that in an energy band, an electron must fall within one of the level. in order to achieve to have its own energy. So because an electron cannot be in two of the level at the same time. Electron cannot be here and still be found here. No, it must be in a particular level. It might be at the lowest level, it might be at the highest level. The lowest level is what we call the ground state energy level. Then we have other level, we call them the excited state energy level. We don't have time to waste. Then another thing again that decides energy band in solid is the mobility of the electrons. How mobile this electron can be. Now, sometimes we can say that different materials have different way by which this, or we can even say electrons and in their level have in fact affected their mobility, because the energy that they possess determine how mobile they will be, this electron. Now let us talk about the next thing is energy, what? The types of solid. Talk about types of solid because we don't have enough time. Now, solid are conductor, semiconductor, and insulator. Now, conductors are material that allow free mobile electron to flow through them. Semiconductors are materials that lies between a conductor, or that its conductivity lies between conductor and insulator. Now, in an energy band, there are things we need to talk about, different bands that we need to talk about so that we can use it to explain this type of solid. And what are the what? The three bands we are going to be talking about. We'll talk about the valence band, the conduction band, and what we call the forbidding band. Now, these are three states of band that we have in an energy band that we are going to use to explain all this. Now, one thing I want you to understand about valency band, if I have, let me make a sketch here of the three bands. Let's say the first band, we call it the conduction band. Then we have what? In between them, we have what they call the forbidding band. And we have the valency band, or the valence band. Now, the valence band is where the electron actually reside, and these electrons are close to each other, thereby reducing the mobility of the electron to zero. So the electrons are closely tied in the valency band with zero mobility, while the conduction band have the electrons are separated from their parent atom and they are mobile. Now let's explain, let's simplify what I'm saying. Now let's say the electrons are here. Electrons are here. And this electron we are talking about, if you check them now, the way I draw it, they are closely tied together, thereby making them not to have that space to be mobile. So look at the electron now. The electrons are residing at the valence band, and they are closely tied together, thereby reducing the mobility of the electron to almost zero. So what band do we call that? We call it a valence band. Now, a forbidding band is between the conduction band and the valence band. The conduction band and the valence band. So that is to say that any electron that were able to escape from this region will end up coming to this place. And they will not be free from their parent atom. And they don't just get to this place. Now, don't forget, this band is free here. There are free electrons here. That means electron does not, this place is empty of electron. They don't allow electron to stay in this forbidding band. But here, electron can attain to this level. They can get to the conduction band. because they are now free and they are separated, they are widely separated from their parent atom. So thereby giving the what? The electron here current that they needed. So that means any electron that get to this place, we allow the material, whether semiconductor or conductor, to become conductive. But at this point, when this conduction band is empty, the material cannot be conductive. It cannot be conductive. Now, how can we differentiate these three materials based on the valency band, the conduction band, and the forbidding band? Now, in the conduction band, in the conductor, the conduction band and the valency band overlap. They overlap in the sense that there is no space for what? For forbidding gap. So that means this is a conductor. So a conductor now only have two bands. Take note of that. Valency band, the what? The conduction band, even according to band theory. Why a semiconductor? If I draw it here, let my name draw it here. Look at the semiconductor. There is a what? An addition of a forbidding band. So that is to say that how can we differentiate a semiconductor from a conductor? A conductor has only two bands, the valence band and the conduction band. While a semiconductor, we have what? Three bands, a what? A narrow forbidding band, which I've drawn here, a conduction band, and the what? A conduction band and the what? The valence band. What about the insulator? If I should draw an insulator here, an insulator has a wider forbidding band. We are going to talk about the implication. A wider forbidding band, whereby the electron do not have enough energy to get to the conduction band. So they always reside here. They don't have the capacity to get to this place because the energy needed to be able to make them get to the conduction band is not to, it cannot be found. So the worst that can happen to them, the example of insulator, we have rubber, we have polythene, and several paper and several of them that we have. So these are insulator. What about semiconductor? We have the silicon, popularly known as what? These are the popular ones anyway, and the germanium. Silicon and the germanium. These are the two types of majorly semiconductor that we have. Example, for conductor, they are majorly metals. Conductors are majorly metals. For example, zinc, aluminum, copper, and so forth and so on. Now, the electrons here in the valency band they will get to the conductor by freely without any disturbance, knowing fully well that there is no what. A forbidding band they don't allow electron to get to their what band. They do not allow what electron to get to the band, and the only band material that does not have forbidding band is what? Conductor. Why? Because they have an overlapping conduction band and valency band. That means they overlap, no space. Number two, the electrons are free and mobile. The electrons are free to get to the conduction band freely. In fact, we are going to see the implication of this when we get to further explanation. What about what? Semiconductor. They do not get to the conduction band just like that. They move from the valency band, the electron will move from valence band to the conduction band by a thermal agitation, thermal influence. That is to say, they cannot just get to the conduction band freely. They needed a temperature. There is a need for temperature influence for electron to move from the valence band to the conduction band. Listen to me. Now, there are temperatures by which what this will operate, and it will not be, it will be called an insulator. That means there are properties that can be given, there are temperatures that can be given to a semiconductor to become a insulator. There are temperatures that can be given to a semiconductor to become conductor. For instance, if I heat this particular semiconductor at room temperature, room temperature is a temperature of 20 degrees Celsius, or better still, you can add it to 273 to convert it to this fundamental unit, which now gives us about 293 Kelvin. Can confirm it. Now, if we hit them, there will now be this electron at the valence band will now migrate to the conduction band. And as they get to the conduction band, they become conductive. And that by having, and when they begin to conduct at room temperature, when they begin to conduct, they will now have a carrier called the holes and the what? An electron. So what are the carriers of a semiconductor? They are holes and electron. Now, that is only when they are conducting. What is the case where they are not conducting? Now, if they are not conducting, that can only happen at what? Absolute zero temperature. What is absolute zero temperature? Which is called minus 273 degrees Celsius. So at absolute zero temperature, semiconductor become an insulator. In that case, there is no carrier. So when they become an insulator, they are no longer behaving like a conductor. They are now behaving like what? Insulator. That's why we can now say that a semiconductor is a material in which the conductivity lies between conductor and insulator. Number two, a semiconductor has a narrow forbidding band. Insulator have a wider forbidding band, while conductor do not have a forbidding band due to overlapping of what? Of conduction band and valency band. Now, number two that we need to know is this. I've just talked about the carriers of electrons, the carriers of current in the semiconductor when they become conductor. They are holes and electron. Holes is positively charged, electron is negatively charged. They will ask in the exam. Look at the question like this, the standard question. They say, in a semiconductor, the carriers of current at room temperature are A, electrons only, B, electrons and holes, C, holes only, and D, electrons and ions. Now, for electrons only, they are metals. The carriers of what? Of current are electrons only. Now, this is like a family that the wife is the only provider of the home. So is the one catering, is the one acting as a woman and also acting as a man. When probably the man is not in Nigeria. So in that case, the electron is the only particular charge that is responsible in carrying current in crystals of conductor. What about the insulator? Insulator has no carrier. Why? Because they cannot conduct in any temperature you give to them. No matter the kind of temperature you assign to them, they will not conduct. They are we call them dielectric material. What are dielectric material? Material that are used to increase the capacitance of the capacitor of the neutral parallel plate. That one is not what we are discussing today. We'll come there another day. Now, what we are saying now is that this insulator does not have a carrier. This one has a carrier. What are carriers of current? Electrons only. What about semiconductor? When they become conductor, what are the carriers? And how can they be conduct? Under the influence of temperature. They are what? Holes and what? Electrons. Now, In the exam, this is another question they can ask you. You must understand the crystals or the operation principles of these three things. And what are the things we want to explain them? Now, let's major on this now. This semiconductor, because this is what we use majorly in producing majority of this. Most of our sources of electronic devices will be coming from here. Now, let's pick a semiconductor. Now, in a semiconductor, don't forget, according to Bann's theorem, the electron here, look at the board. If I say these are the electrons, for example, these are these electrons tightly what close together, thereby reducing their mobility to almost zero. If electron move here after you have applied it according to what I said before, now let's assume that this electron now migrate, leave this place and come to the what conduction band. Let's say this one also leave and come here. Let's say this one leave and come here, and they can only leave this valence band after they have gained enough kinetic energy, after they have gained enough energy. So those one with higher energy will escape to the conduction band. Let's see what we have this. Now, if you check, we have how many space left here? 4. How many escape here? 4. So that is one point. The number of electrons in the valence or the number of holes, because what we left behind is holes. That's where the positive charge comes. That is how holes are created. Holes are created in the semiconductor as a result of absence of what? Electron. So that means because some people have the answer, holes, we only know about electron. Holes are created when electron escape from the valency band to the what? The conduction band. So we will now have the number of electrons in the conduction band will now be equal to number of what? Holes that will be left behind in the valency band. And immediately this material begin to conduct, because this one will now be mobile, and conductivity is as a result of mobility of electron, which lead to what? The current. Because current is what produced as the rate of flow of electron. Now let's go. Now when we talk about what? Electron getting here. Now look, number of electrons, it's a professional exam. They ask this in the exam. Number of electrons in the conduction band. Number of electrons in the conduction band is equal to number of holes. Equal to number of holes in the valency band. Valence band. That is number 1 point you need to take from there. Number 2 point you need to take there is this. That the carriers of currents in the semiconductor are currents are what? Electrons and holes. That is number 2. I'm giving summary. Number 3 is that in a semiconductor at absolute zero temperature, they are insulator, but conductor at its room temperature. Now, these are the things you have summarized in my statement so you can understand it. Now, let's go further. We enter conductor. Now, before we enter conductor, ensure that you know that semiconductors that are silicon and germanium are group 4 metals. They are group 4 metals. Semiconductor examples that we have talked about are group 4 metals. That is to say that they belong to group 4 in the periodic table. So they are tetravalent. Tetravalent. You check a what? A silicon has what? 4 what? Electron at the outer shell. So therefore we write them like this. Sometimes we write them like this. 4 electrons at the outer shell. So 1, 1, 1, 1. So there are 4 in number. That's what? That is not complete. It does not complete octet. Assuming it's 2, 2, 2, 2 is complete. So it's 4. Therefore, when they combine with another silicon, they form what they call a covalent bonding. Because this one will donate 1, then it will give the same way they will be forming like that. Maybe we have a silicon here. Let me draw one here. It's very complex. Say crystals. This one will donate 1. This one donate 1. Complete. Then another one will form here. This one donate 1. The one that will be coming here will also donate 1. So that's how the crystals will continue to form until they become large. So it will not complete. So that means it's between what? 2 silicon now, they form what we call a what? A covalent bonding. So that means simply what I'm saying here is that if a silicon has to a semiconductor, one has to be combined with another. The bond that joins them together is what we call a covalent bonding. Take note of that. Now, silicon and germanium are also called pure semiconductor. They are called pure semiconductor. Why? Because the number of what? Electrons is equal to number of holes. The number of electrons equal to number of holes. So we call them a pure semiconductor. We can also call them an intrinsic semiconductor. Intrinsic semiconductor. I say it again. I say silicon and germanium are example of a pure semiconductor. Pure. So they can ask, it's very common in an exam. They are very common. Look at it. They say pure silicon can be converted to, okay, no, not that one. They say a pure silicon has the bond joining to another silicon known as dash. That means a pure semiconductor, the number of electrons in the conduction band, okay, that one we have answered it already. Okay, let's see another example that, okay, let me just take this one. Let's say a silicon has a bond existing between what? 2 silicon. That means if you have a silicon joined with another silicon, what kind of bond does it exist? Or does it exist between them? That means silicon to another silicon. The bond that exists between silicon and silicon is called covalent bonding. Because covalent bonding has to do with sharing of what? Of electrons. While electrovalent is what? Transferring of electron. So that means if I want to combine germanium and silicon, what bond will we use to what? To join them together? They can ask you in the exam is what we call what? A covalent bond. Look at it. The bond that forms, number 12 in this question. So the bond that form a semiconductor is dash. A covalent, B electrovalent, C ionic, and D metallic. So the bond that form a semiconductor, that produce a semiconductor, is what we call a what? Covalent bonding. Take note of that. Another thing again you must take note before I leave is that the more the temperature of a semiconductor, the more the conductivity. The more the what? The more, that means increase in what? In temperature increases the conductivity of the semiconductor. This is a vital point you need to know. So how does semiconductor be affected by temperature? Just increase the temperature of the semiconductor, you have increased the conductivity. And in that case, what we are going to have now is that we are now going to have a what? A decrease in resistivity. A decrease in what? In resistivity. That's what we are going to have when you are talking about what? A semiconductor, such as silicon and germanium. Now, so take note of this very vital point. How does what is semiconductor being affected by temperature? Or how can what the conductivity of the semiconductor be affected? Simply just increase the temperature. You what? I mean, you have increased, you have ended up increasing the conductivity. I believe you are enjoying the class. So let's move on. Let's move on. There's a which of these following, number 15. It's a which of these following is a pure semiconductor. A pure semiconductor. What that mean? A pure semiconductor is also known as what? An intrinsic semiconductor. A, silicon. B, carbon. Somebody misuse carbon. Carbon it belongs to before, but it's not a semiconductor. Carbon is it can form what they call catenation in chemistry, because it can form a what? A polymer. It's too complex, so they study it under organic chemistry. But our own here, we talk about for electronics purposes, they discuss majorly what? Silicon and germanium as a pure semiconductor. So we have a silicon here that should be an answer. The bond between silicon and germanium is dash. I think we have talked about that. A, covalent. B, trivalent. C, ionic. And D, dative. No, the answer to that question is covalent bonding. We have talked about that also. Please take note of that. Now, they said what? Which of the following can conduct electricity owing to the presence of free mobile electrons? Number 13. Which of the following can conduct electricity owing to the presence of free mobile electron? An example of that is what? A conductor. A conductor, I've told you that they allow free mobile electron to flow through them. Let me shock you. If you increase the conductivity of a what? Of a particular metal, you are actually also what? Or maybe increase temperature, you have actually increased the temperature. That means what I'm saying now is that if the temperature increases, you have increased the what? The what? The resistance. It's not like semiconductor whereby as the temperature is going up, resistance is coming down. So increase in conductor, increase in temperature decreases what? Increase in resistance with temperature. Why what? Semiconductor is decrease in resistance with temperature. What am I saying? Because that's how you see them present in the exam. Increase in what? Resistance with temperature, while decrease in resistance with temperature. That is, a semiconductor is what? Is a device that what? Increases its temperature as the semiconductor what? As the resistance decreases. Now somebody asks, what is silicon in the question? A silicon is a group metal that is we can call them metalloid in chemistry, but they are group 4 that are pure semiconductor. Intrinsic semiconductor that has the number of electrons in them equal to number of holes. Somebody just asked what is it, and in a silicon semiconductor, we call them a pure semiconductor because the number of electrons are equal to number of holes. So silicon are semiconductor that its conductivity lies between conductor and insulator. That's what we call a what? A silicon. I believe I've answered that. Somebody said, question. Let me repeat the other question. Question what? 15. He said, which of the following is a pure semiconductor? Silicon is the answer. We have option A, silicon, B, carbon, C, transistor, and D, phosphorus. Phosphorus is a graphite metal. Those of you that did chemistry, you understand what that means. A transistor, we have not gotten there. That's where we are going to get to as the time goes on. Carbon is not what? Pure semiconductor. Why silicon is the answer? Now, this one says, now, before we go on, let me give you what? A shortcut here. That means in a semiconductor, increase in temperature increases conductivity. Please take note of that, this one. Then decreases resistivity. In the semiconductor, this is a bomb. I'll still give you other bomb. I call it bomb because it will help you to what, to remember. Increasing temperature increases conductivity of the semiconductor and decreases resistivity or resistance, as the case may be. So take note of that. So now we are done with semiconductor. The only thing I will now mention is that we have two types of semiconductor. Two types of semiconductor. We have what? The pure and the what? The impure. Because when we are talking about, there are two sides of life. When we are talking about the other side, we talk about the other side. The positive side, we talk about the negative side. Impure semiconductor is what we call extrinsic semiconductor. We call them extrinsic what? Semiconductor. While pure is called what? Intrinsic semiconductor. This one is more conductive than this one. We call the extrinsic semiconductor is more conductive than pure semiconductor. Really that the more the impurity, the better the conductivity. Somebody have that. Yes, I've not classified semiconductor into two now. That means we now have pure, we now have impure. Now, the impure one is the one that we have talked about, which is silicon and what? Germanium. While the impure are called the P and the N type semiconductor. The P type and N type semiconductor. So extrinsic semiconductor are semiconductor produced or generated as a result of doping. As a result of what? Doping. Now, question 15, then somebody has to repeat question 15. The which of the following is a pure semiconductor? A. Silicon. B. Carbon. C. Transistor. D. Phosphorus. The answer is silicon. Which of the following is a pure semiconductor? So the answer is what? Silicon. I've answered that. Now, I've just talked about what? A pure semiconductor now. That means there are two types, the silicon and the germanium. Now, the impure is what? There are two types also, the P and the N type. So, how do we classify what? An extrinsic semiconductor? An extrinsic semiconductor is a semiconductor in which what? The semiconductor are derived, or are produced as a result of what? Doping. And the number of electrons is not equal to number of holes. So it's a semiconductor in which the number of electrons is not equal to number of holes. As such, they are produced by doping process. I've mentioned something inside. What is doping? Doping process is a process by which what? You add an impurity to a pure semiconductor. When an impurity is added to a pure semiconductor, the process of achieving that is what we call a doping process. So doping process is a phenomenon by which an impurity is added to a pure semiconductor to achieve an impure semiconductor. Now, what are the words? That means doping, the formula is what? Not like pure plus impurity. We give you what? Impurities. We give you what? Impure. So that means impurity can be two types. There are two things that we use as impurity in what? In extrinsic semiconductor. We use what we call impurities are what? Trivalent. That means impurities are trivalent and pentavalent. Let me clear this side. Impurities are what? Trivalent and pentavalent. So when we want to achieve an impure semiconductor, just add a what? A trivalent element. What are trivalent elements? With three and what? Electron, like what? Group 3s are what? We have hydrogen, helium, lithium. beryllium, boron. Then that means we have what? The one they have 3 electrons at the outer what? Outermost shell. That's what we call them trivalent. Those ones that are pentavalent, they have 5 electrons at the outermost shell. 5. Example of this one is phosphorus. Phosphorus. Example of this one is aluminium. So we can either use phosphorus, which is good 5 meter, or we use what? Aluminium, which is good 3, to what? To achieve our aim. So now, based on how do we achieve our aim to achieve p-type and n-type semiconductor is by adding a trivalent element or pentavalent element to achieve extrinsic semiconductor. Now, p-type can now be achieved. Look at the p-type. Now, let me start with this. Let me come with a simple formula, then we go into the structure. Now, you have a pure plus trivalent. A pure plus trivalent element will achieve what we call a p-type semiconductor. That is a pure, that means silicon plus aluminium. So silicon plus aluminium. Now, how? Silicon has 4 electrons. Aluminium has what? 3 electrons at the outer shell. From chemistry knowledge, this is already 7. There's only what? It is not complete already. It has not complete or tested. That means that there is what? A O left. For instance, let me take what? Aluminium. Let me take the outer shell. Now this is aluminium. Aluminium. Now let me draw what? Silicon around it. This one silicon. This one silicon. This is another silicon. And this another silicon. Now the aluminium will drop 1. Silicon will drop 1. Aluminium will drop 1. Silicon will drop 1. Aluminium will drop 1. Silicon will drop 1. Silicon will drop 1, but aluminium cannot drop. So that means that there is a what? This one is what? Occupy. This one occupy. This one occupy. But there is a what? A O here. So this O, now this one will not what? Aluminium will not donate anyone again to make it complete. So this crystal now is suffering for what? 1 electron to complete this place. So leaving by a what? Creating a O here. And that O is what we call the positive charge. So in a p-type semiconductor, there is surplus what? O's and deficient electron. There is surplus O's and deficient electron. Take note of that. Therefore, leading to what we call a p-type. Just like going to a party where there are what? More boys than girls. We call them boys party. So in that case now, in this party, there are more what? O's than electrons. Electrons are 7, O's are what? 8. So if you have what? 8 O's and 7 electrons, who is dominating this particular party? We say O's. And O's are what? Positively charged. That's why we call it p-type what? Semiconductor, because we have more O's than electrons. So in that way, in the exam, they'll say, what are the majority carriers of this particular what? Crystals? The majority carriers of this crystal is what? Are O's, while the minority carriers are electrons. Please take note of that. The majority carriers here are what? Because the majority carries the vote according to the. They say what? 8 O's and 7 electrons. So there are more O's than electrons. So in this case, we say the majority carriers of current are what? O's, while the minority is what? The currents, the electrons. Now, number 2 point they will ask you is that what is the impurity used in a p-type semiconductor, a trivalent element? Now, a manufacturer wishes to produce a p-type what? Semiconductor, what will you use as doping or dopant? This one is what we call the dopant. So a dopant will be what? Will be added to what? A pure semiconductor to produce a doping process. So impurities are dopant. That means trivalent and what? And pentavalent phosphorus are what we call dopant in a what? In an extrinsic semiconductor. So a dopant are what? Impurities added to what? A pure semiconductor in order to improve the conductivity of what? Of semiconductor. Let me shock you. Now, impurity are not, they are improving the crystals. They are not negative to the crystals. They help to improve the conductivity of the semiconductor. Now, that's why I give students this particular one. Increase sheet and reduce re or reduce rere. Increase sheet and reduce rere. Reduce what? Rere. Now, what does that mean? Now, let me give you this shortcut. Is very, very sweet, especially when you go to examination or whether WAEC or any exam you are writing. Now, this one means conductivity. This one means heat. This one is what? Impurity. Why this one is temperature. So that is to say all these increases accordingly. That means when you increase conductivity, you have actually increased it. And when you have increased it, you have also increased what? Impurity. Impurity is more. That's what I'm saying. Then you have also increased what? Temperature. But in other words, you have what? Reduced what? Resistivity. The first rare is resistivity. And the second rare is what? Resistance. So increase sheet, reduce rare. Increase sheet, reduce rare. If there's anything to take home, I think that one is a very good point. Increase what? Sheet. Repeat after me. Increase sheet, reduce rare. Increase sheet. That means increase what? Conductivity. I repeat. H is heat. I is impurity. T is temperature. And reduce rare is what? The first one is resistivity. Don't forget, resistivity is measured in its own meter. Then and reduce resistance. This one is measured in ohms. Don't forget, conductivity is what? Is measured in per ohm for what we call Siemens. So that is what the shortcut there. Look at this question now. In a pure semiconductor, okay, we have answered that one. Pure silicon can be converted to p-type semiconductor number 3 by adding a controlled amount of dash. Pure silicon can be converted to a p-type material by adding a controlled amount of dash. A. Trivalent. B. Tetravalent. C. Pentavalent. D. Hexavalent. The answer is what? Trivalent. Trivalent. Adding trivalent to it will what? To a pure semiconductor will produce a p-type semiconductor, which is what? What? An extrinsic semiconductor. Now, another one says what? The major difference between a pure semiconductor, I'm supposed to answer this question before. The major difference between a pure semiconductor and a pure metal is that metals are other than semiconductor. Wrong. Not all metals are other than semiconductor. Why the resistance of a metal decreases with temperature? Don't forget, the conductor in resistance increases with temperature. Why semiconductor decreases with temperature? Please take from that. For conductor, the resistance increases with temperature. Why for what? For semiconductor decreases with temperature. That means the reverse is the case. In other words, what we are saying now is that R is proportional to T in conductor, but R is inversely proportional to T in what? Semiconductor. Semiconductor, we call them non-ohmic conductor. Conductor that what? That do not obey Ohm's law. Ohm's law says that what? In a metallic conductor, the potential difference what produced is directly proportional to the current passing through the what? The metallic conductor, provided the what? resistance are kept constant under physical condition. What are the physical conditions they are talking about? The temperature we are talking about. Temperature is part of them. Because one thing that we use in measuring temperature is resistance thermometer. So resistance thermometer is an instrument used to measure temperature. So when we are talking about conductor, this conductor, conductor now, for you we keep resistance constant in Ohm's law so that temperature can be kept constant. Because the conductor increases with decrease in temperature. Conductor increases with temperature while semiconductor decreases with temperature. Let's go to the next one. So the answer to that question, they say, hey, the major difference between what? Between pure semiconductor and pure metals is that metals are harder than semiconductor, no. While the resistance of the material decreases with temperature, the reverse of metal increases with temperature. While the semiconductor is the reverse, no. All those questions. I believe that question is wrong. What they should ask us is that what? The conductor increases with temperature while semiconductor is the reverse. Because our conductor, resistance of conductor increases with temperature while the what? Semiconductor is the reverse. So that option B says while the resistance of what metals decreases with temperature, okay, the reverse of metal increases with temperature. I think that one will better. That one is better. So that is option B. Now let's go to the what? The impurity. They say, sis, when an impurity or when impurity is added to a semiconductor, the conductivity of semiconductor dash. Look at what I'm saying. Very common question. When impurities are added to a semiconductor, the conductivity of the semiconductor dash. Now, impurity will help to increase the conductivity. So the answer is conductivity, increases conductivity. I repeat again. When impurities are added to a semiconductor, the conductivity of the semiconductor, what happens? A, increase. B, decrease. C, remain constant. D, increase. And then decrease. No. The answer is that it will increase. When impurity is added to a semiconductor, it will increase. That is the answer. A certain manufacturer wishes to make an N-type semiconductor. Which material will he select for doping? You want to make an N-type semiconductor. An N-type semiconductor can be produced by what? N-type. Because we have not talked about N-type. N-type is what? Pure plus what? Trivalent. Sorry, pentavalent. Pentavalent is chemistry B5. Example, we have what? Antimony, arsenic, phosphorus. These are what? Group 5 what? Elements that you should know. So those are what? And so what? You say, when a pentavalent is added to what? So when you add it to it, what happens? This one is 4. Pure semiconductor silicon, they have 4 electrons at the outer shell. Don't forget. Plus 5 from the what? From the pentavalent. The pentavalent has 5 electrons at the outer shell. So 4E plus 5E, how many do you have now? 9E. So that means that we have what? 8E plus 1 surplus electron. Surplus. So that is to say, what we are saying now is this. That when you add 5 plus 4, N-type, to say 4E plus 5E. This is pentavalent. This is what? Pure. They have 4 electrons. Silicon and germanium have 4 electrons at the outer shell. Now, what we are saying now is that we know we want to achieve 8 electrons. Now, this one 4 plus 4 plus 1, 1E. That means we are going to have 8 plus 1 is, that means 1 surplus what? Electron. Surplus. Electron. So if you have 1 surplus electron, that means 8E plus 1 surplus electron. What does that mean, class? It means that there are more electrons in this crystal for N-type. That's why we call it what? An N-type semiconductor. Because there are surplus, 1 surplus what? Electron. So electron is what electron domineering what semiconductor. So in this case now, we say electron is the majority carrier. So electron is what? Is the majority carriers of current. Carrier. And what? Host is what? Is the minority carrier. So hosts are what? Is the minority carrier. Minority. Please take note of that. Why? Because the number of hosts now we are going to have now will be eight hosts and 9 electrons. If you draw the crystal, that's what we're going to have. 9 electrons. So we have surplus holes and what? Deficient and surplus electron and deficient holes. This is very common in past question. Take note of that. What is the impurity here? The dopant is this one. Now, another thing you must know, there's what we call acceptor and there's a donor. So we have what they call acceptor and donor. It's not too common in textbooks. Now, this one is what we call is the one that have 5 electrons, has more electron than this one. So this one will be the donor. This one will be donating to donor, while this one is the acceptor. So we call this particular impurity a donor impurity. Why was a donor impure semiconductor? Why this p-type? P-type is what we call what? Because this one is 4E plus 3E. So it will form, this one is the donor, why this one is acceptor. Why? Because this one has more electron than this one. So this one is the acceptor. Acceptor. So which one is accepting electron now? Is what? This one. Which one is donating? This one. So one is donating in the crystal, one is accepting in the crystal. Does not change the fact that this particular crystal is more host dominating crystals or semiconductor. So take note of that. In this case, now impurity is the acceptor. In this case, now impurity is the donor. So that means in the end time. Let's rush all the question now. He said, which of the following is a pure silicon? We have answered that one. The bond between silicon and germanium, we have answered that one, is covalent bonding. Say what? Which of these is what? Is an advantage of what? Of a semiconductor. We are going to do that one under semiconductor diode. Anyway, I will explain it. But the answer, advantage of semiconductor is that it is small in size. It has low power, low voltage, and low power requirement. Not easily damaged by high temperature. And it's highly durable. So those, they are very durable. Electronic work, semiconductor are highly durable. This one say, what are semiconductors? Semiconductors are what? Are materials that that each conductivity lies between conductor and insulator. This one say, sir, please answer number 13. Number 13, which of the following can conduct electricity owing to the presence of free mobile electron? Now, number 13 is what? The one that can allow free mobile electron is what? Copper. Copper is a metal. So copper allow what? Free mobile electron. Grapefruit is what? It's not a metal. Then silicon is a semiconductor. This is option B. Option A say germanium is not germanium. So A and B are semiconductor. While what D is metal, pure metal. This one said, sir, please repeat number 15. I said, number 15 say, which of the following is a pure semiconductor? So people have answered that question severally. You can rewatch the video over and over again. This one say, sir, answer number 1. In semiconductor, the carriers of current at room temperature are what? Electrons and holes is the answer. Electron only is for metal. That is option A. Option B say electrons and holes. That is option B, which is semiconductor. Holes only, no, that one does not elect. The electrons and ions are gases. Gases, what? When they become conductive at low pressure and high voltage, they now possess carriers, which is what? Electrons and ions. This one said, when impurity are added to a semiconductor, what happens? When impurities are added to a semiconductor, they become impure. They rather produce a what? A pure, a p-type or n-type. And the impurity can either be trivalent or pentavalent. Answered. This one said, I do not understand germanium. Germanium is also a semiconductor which have been if not to before. They are tetravalent. They form a covalent bond with one another. They are material that what its conductivity lies between conductor and semiconductor. Germanium are pure in what semiconductor that each number of electrons equal to number of what holes. Germaniums are what have a narrow forbidden band, having three bands: the valency band, the forbidden band, and the conduction band. The valency band of the germanium is closely, electrons are closely tight, that they are not free to move around. They are not free to move. They can only move when you apply it to them. They will now migrate. I've talked all those things from the valency band to the conduction band. This was a define intrinsic. An intrinsic semiconductor is a semiconductor that has number of free electrons equal to number of holes. Now, if I say defines extrinsic semiconductors are semiconductors that the number of free electrons is not equal to number of holes and can be produced by a doping process. What is a doping process? A doping process is a process by which you add a dopant, an impurity, to a pure semiconductor, silicon or germanium, to become an impure semiconductor. Don't forget that impurity is not negative to the crystals, but rather adding to the crystals, because it helps to increase conductivity. The heat you have added helps to increase what? Impurity helps to increase temperature. It has also helped to increase the heat in the system, thereby what helping to reduce resistivity and resistance. Most questions are professional exams questions. Differentiate between resistance and resistivity. Resistance is the ability of a resistor to resist the flow of current in a circuit. Resistance is the ability of a resistor to resist flow of current in a circuit. Don't forget, this is a resistor. A resistor is the component that resists flow of current in a circuit. But this is a resistant. This I've allocated a value to it. This will become a resistant 2 ohms of a resistor. Resistant 2 ohms of a what? Of a resistor. But this one is just a resistor without a value. Resistivity is the what? The inverse of what? Conductivity. Resistivity is the inverse of what? Of conductivity. Meaning that what? The resistivity is the property or the nature of a material. It even comes in from resistance law, which is what? Rho over L. That means it's a constant. It's a resistance. It's a nature. It gives what? The nature of the materials. And the resistivity is what? Depends on the conductivity of such of any material. Though we can say resistance is measured in ohms, resistivity is measured in what? Ohm meter. That is the unit, ohm meter. So we get it from what? This relationship. Ra over L equal to rho. So when you this one is what? Resistance is what? Ohms. Area is meter square over meter. This one is length. This is length, area, resistance, and resistivity. So if this one cancel, we have ohm meter as that. Then lastly, I think if I answer this question, we'll just stop for today's class. I believe I've touched everything about conductivity, semiconductor. The only thing I will now touch in the next class that we'll have to work, because I need to break it down. The course is very wide and I don't need to rush you. And please also go back to rewatch those videos and also send your questions across. If I cannot answer your question now because of time, don't be angry with us. We always have time for you. We have time for you. It's going to say number 5, sir. So for a semiconductor to have negative temperature coefficient for resistance implies that means they decreases with temperature. They decrease with what? With temperature. That's what that statement means. They say they have what? Electron and holes at high temperature. This one say their resistance is constantly changing. No. Their resistance decreases with temperature. Yes, that is C. So to have negative temperature coefficient means that don't forget, metals or conductors, their conductivity or resistance increases with temperature. Why what for semiconductor they decreases with temperature? This explanation is everywhere in the world. That means what they are saying now is that they are inverse. If you plot this graph, you have a negative graph, a negative slope. That's where the negative comes in. You understand? When you plot the graph of resistance against temperature. This one says what? That okay, number 7 and 8. It's a silicon material is doped with an element of a certain group, and an n-type semiconductor is formed. The most likely group of the element is dash. I can say a silicon material is doped with an element of certain group, and an n-type semiconductor is formed. The most likely group of the element is dash. So that means what they dope that silicon material with, because they say a silicon is doped with an element of a certain group, and an n-type semiconductor is formed. What is the group? Now, if an n-type is formed from a what, and a certain element is added to a pure semiconductor, that is pentavalent now. That should be pentavalent. So the answer is pentavalent. Is pentavalent not there? Yes, group 5. Yes, the option D. Please, those of you that have not been following us, please follow us. In our next, we will send this question a day before. Any question we want to send to you, we'll send it on our YouTube channel. We'll send it as video so you download it. Or we'll send you a picture so that you can follow us and follow the questions when we want to teach a class like this, so that you can have everything you need or to get. Or you can send me a message to me on WhatsApp. I will send you the word. This is my WhatsApp number. I will send you the question in quotes. Anywhere you are watching us, anywhere in the world or in the nation, just what? So message us through their number. You don't need to call us, just message us. So we'll just say this is a remedial class, a class that will comprehend or that will assist rather whatever you are doing for yourself. So please ensure you always follow. Every Friday, the program will be holding every Friday for now, until we have the resources to be able to do it at least 3 times or 3 times a week. Most probably, when the exam is closed, we will try to increase the time so that we can cover a lot. This one says what? Number 9, sir. What is number 9? He said a certain manufacturer. I've answered that question. They say the group of elements that you have to produce an n-type is dash. So the group of elements you have to produce an n-type is what? Is pentavalent. They say what? Number 9, it says, this one say number 9. We have a lot of questions here. A certain manufacturer, which is, I want to appreciate my wonderful wife that have been working with me in this, in the closest. Yes. She has been the one sending your questions to us to ensure that we answer them. She's my wonderful queen, and I must appreciate her. So let's continue. Now, a certain manufacturer wishes to what? To make an n-type semiconductor. Which material will he select for doping? So now, a manufacturer wishes to produce an n-type semiconductor. Which material? If you want to use a material to produce an n-type, you use pentavalent. He said what? Helium and boron. No, now. Boron is I think you should be good to 3. Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron. It's 5. Number 5 in what? In periodic table. And if you arrange it, 2 in the inner shell and 3 outside. So it's a trivalent. So that one say, so trivalent cannot be used. Helium is not even part of this. What? They are complete in the outer shell. They belong to group. I think they should belong to all these earth metals. That means that have a complete atmos shell. That's chemistry. Okay, let's go. This says what? Boron and what? Antimony. Boron spoiled that option. Antimony is a good answer. See, it says aluminium and indium. Aluminium and indium are two of them are group 3. Indium is what, group 3. Aluminium is group 3, so that one cannot work. Then the D says arsenic and antimony, good. They are pentavalent elements. They are good what material to be used for as doping to produce an N type. So to produce an N type, I've answered that number 7. So to produce an N type, use arsenic and antimony. This is number 2, sir. I've answered number 2. Number 2 says in a pure semiconductor, the number of the valency band or valence band in a semiconductor is either totally filled. That means everything is filled. That means electron here now is that everything will be filled with electron. It's totally filled with electron. That means totally filled with electron. Or when 3 electrons before electron escape come here, it becomes what? Partially what? Filled. So partially filled. These are criteria that happen to valence band. Is either it's partially filled or totally filled for valence band. Then this one is either totally empty for the conduction band. This conduction band now. Conduction band is either what? Totally empty or partially empty. What do you mean by that? If you go to a church now and you have 4 members, what do we call that church? We say it is almost empty. Let's use what? Almost empty. Yes, this one is totally empty or probably almost empty. Now, this one is what? If you go to a church and you have only 4 space remaining, only 4 space remaining out of 300 capacity. Now, that's what is happening here. All these ones are filled. It's only 4 that is now remaining. So we can have it totally filled or partially what? Filled. That means meaning what? Small to filled, partially filled. Now, that is for semiconductor. But for conductor, for insulator, the conduction band is always empty, please. Why? Because the electron cannot move from here to this place. Because once the electron get to this place, they become conductive. And insulator now, electron cannot move from here, from this valency band to get to this place. Their electron here is always their conduction band is always empty. Please take note that. Always. And that's why they cannot conduct. Insulator cannot conduct. For insulator, this place is always empty, while this place is always filled for insulator. It's like that. So that means no single electron will get to the conduction band for an insulator. I've given you example: paper, polythene, rubber. These are insulator. Take note of that. So that number 2, they said. Now, and I told you it was semiconductor. I've explained it. Go and watch the video again. I can only going back. He said the number of electrons here that lives here, that come to this place, equal to number of holes that will be left behind. So the answer to that question is that he said what? He said in a pure semiconductor, the number of electrons in the conduction band is equal to number of holes in the valency band. Example, that is equal to what? Number of holes in the valency band. That is the answer. Option B. Number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have answered it. 4 is different between metals and semiconductors. Different between metals and semiconductors. 5, we have answered it. For semiconductor to have a negative, we have answered it. 6, when impurity is added to a semiconductor, the conductivity of the semiconductor increase. I've answered it. 7, I've answered it. A silicon metal is doped with what I've answered it. 8, I've answered it. They said a theory of electronic conductor in solid, the theory of electronic conductor that satisfactorily explains the properties of conductor, insulator, and conductive semiconductor is that what we call band theory. I've explained it. The theory of electronic conductor in solid, which satisfactorily explain the properties of conductor, insulator, and semiconductor. I've told you that the band theory that explained what the properties of what of electronic in solid, that explained what that explain the properties of solid in what conductor, insulator, and what and semiconductor is what we call band theory. Band theory, option D. That is band theory, not group theory, not particle theory, not string theory, but band theory. Number 9, a certain manufacturer wishing to make an n-type semiconductor, which material will you select for doping? I've answered that one. You select what a pentavalent element to produce an n-type. And those are what? Arsenic and antimony. Number 10 is repetition, which is silicon doped with aluminum. When a silicon is doped with aluminum, silicon doped with aluminum, silicon before doped with aluminum trivalent. What we are going to have is p type. Silicon doped with aluminum. Then when silicon is what? Number 10. When silicon is doped with arsenic, what we are going to have is what? N type. Arsenic is what? Trivalent. Pentavalent. Coupled with what? A pure semiconductor. We have a what? N type. A pure semiconductor combined with trivalent, you have p type. Pentavalent with pure n type. Trivalent with pure p type. Holes are majority carriers. Holes are majority carriers, while the electrons are the minority carriers in p type. That means holes are what? Majority carriers, while electrons are what? Minority carrier in p type. Is p type. Why what? Electrons are majority carrier. That's what we call it n type. They are, because the name they carry will tell you in the exam. The name n-type semiconductor tells you that what it is what electron dominating what semiconductor. P-type means that positive types. It means positive type semiconductor. Positive type semiconductor. N-type means what? Negative type semiconductor. So from the name, positive is what? O's. So if you talk about P-type, majorities are O's. When you talk about N-type, what majority are what? Are electrons. For even from their name. So if you go to a party and say, oh, this is guest party, what do you say? It means that the guests are more than the boys. That means there are 50 guests and probably 30 boys. And I believe most of the parties, these are the parties that guys like to attend. You know, when there are more guests than boys. That's why you go to some university, you see that they'll say free for guests to come to the party, and the boys will pay 3,000. And before you know, you now see girls dressing like guests because they want to attend party and eat rice. So it's very funny. So that is just that. Very interesting. I believe I enjoyed this class today. And I believe I enjoyed it. We have to go now. So next class now, we have talked about everything. I will send this question to you. I've answered all the questions that I have to do in semiconductor here. Then I've also talked about band theorem. I've been able to talk about this in semiconductor, conductor, and insulator. I'll be able to tell you that semiconductors are materials that allow is what that if conductivity lies between conductor and what insulator. I've also talked about what conductor as those materials that allow free mobile or owing to the presence of free mobile electron. That means the carriers its conductors are electrons only, while the carriers in semiconductors are holes and what electrons. We have also talked about two types of semiconductor, which are pure and impure semiconductor. Pure are what? Intrinsic, which has number of electrons equal to number of holes. And we talk about impure semiconductor, which are what? Achieved or produced as a result of doping. Doping is a process of adding an impurity to a pure semiconductor. And doping helps to improve the conductivity of the semiconductor, because it brings about impurity, which brings about what? Sheet and reduce relay. Increase sheet and reduce relay. So I believe you enjoyed the class. Please ensure you or just press the notification button so that you'll be getting our video, and so that you can rewatch this video and other our subsequent classes that will be posted or videos that will be posting. It helps you to remember. it helps you to go back and reward, go through all those things again to comprehend them better. And also, you can go to your past questions to what apply all these things that we have talked about. So it is not, this is, and what, it's not a tutorial, a particular tutorial piece. You can, any tutorial can join us from Lagos, from Ibadan, from Abuja, from Port Harcourt to watch this program. Please help us share it to others so that they can benefit and learn a lot of shortcuts from the shortcut master. My name is Engineer Haliday. I believe you enjoyed this night class. I want you to go and rest. I also want to have a rest because we have a long day. And I want to appreciate my crew member, the person of Samuel, and the other people at the background. My lovely wife, Justina Adeleke. Thank you very much for being there for me and to support me. God bless you. I love you guys and I wish you success. Thank you.